Hello everyone, welcome to EduTap and welcome to the weekend marathon session. So today is your marathon session for economics where we are going to revise the most important topics of economics, the most important concepts of economics through the different MCQs. So we are going to solve the 50 MCQs and through these 50 MCQs we are going to revise the various concepts, okay? So I hope you are prepared. I hope you have prepared for today's session and the examination is quite near, so I hope you will be able to answer the questions in a very good manner. Okay, so give me a thumbs up if I'm clearly audible and visible and everything is fine. And today is your weekly marathon session, the weekend marathon session for the SEBI Grade A 2025 for economics, where we are going to practice the questions and where we are going to solve 50 MCQs through which we are going to revise various concepts. This marathon is going to help you in the phase 1 and phase 2 because you know that the syllabus is same. So if you are solving these questions, that means you are very well prepared for the phase 1 as well as you have good knowledge for the phase 2 also. Okay, so give me a thumbs up if everything is fine. Okay, so let's get started. But before that, do subscribe to the YouTube channel of EduTap so that you continue getting the relevant videos, and do join our Telegram channel where you will get the PDF of the session. And the link for the Telegram channel is provided in the description box below. Okay, so let's get started with the first question. I hope you will be easily able to answer this question. These kind of questions on the law of demand has come in the PFRDA Grade A examination, in the SEBI Grade A examination. Okay, so the first question is that which of the following correctly describes the shape of the demand curve for a normal good under the law of demand. So law of demand states that there is inverse relationship between the price of a commodity and its quantity demanded. So what is the shape of the demand curve for a normal good under the law of demand? Okay, so what is the shape of the demand curve of a normal good? So the shape of the demand curve is downward sloping. See, if there is inverse relationship between price of a commodity and quantity demanded, that means there is a downward sloping demand curve, and the downward sloping demand curve shows the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. If the price is decreasing, the demand will increase. Okay, so E is the right answer. Very good. Everyone has given the right answer, that is E. Okay, so this is the right answer. Moving forward, so law of demand states that there is inverse relationship between price of a commodity and quantity demanded. That's why there is a downward sloping demand curve. Which good? There is only one kind of good. There is only a category of good. Okay, under the inferior goods, there is a category of good, that is the dash good, that breaks the law of demand. Which is the category of good under the inferior goods, which is the category of good that breaks the law of demand? So it is given good. Given good is the good that is a inferior good. So the other inferior goods, they follow the law of demand. They follow the law of demand. But under the inferior goods, there is a category of good, that is the given good, that breaks the law of demand. The given good does not follow the law of demand. So all the normal goods as well as most of the inferior goods, they follow the law of demand. They have a downward sloping demand curve. But given good, that is a special category of inferior good. This given good does not follow the law of demand, and that's why it does not have a downward sloping demand curve. Given goods has a upward sloping demand curve. Okay, so this you have to remember. Now, coming to the next question, if you know the linear demand function, if you know this demand function, this question will be easy for you. Again, in the SEBI Grade A previous year examination, such a question has been asked where the slope you had to identify and such. Okay, so this is the demand curve. Now 40 minus 2p. So if you know that 40 is the intercept, in this demand function, minus 2 is what? It is the slope of the demand curve. So negative shows the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So the slope is minus 2. Now the slope can be minus 2. So the B or C can be the answer, right? But here the question is that which of the following correctly identifies both the quantity demanded at zero price. So what will be the quantity demanded at zero price and the slope of the demand curve? So slope of the demand curve is minus 2, and when the price is 0, if the price is 0, that means this whole will become 0. If the price is 0, so multiplied by minus 2, so this will become 0. So demand will be 40. So the answer here is C. Very good, everyone. C is the right answer. Okay, so C is the right answer. So here you can see that the slope is with price. So minus B is the slope, and the intercept, that is A, it is the intercept. It shows that if the price is 0, then A, that is the intercept, it is the quantity demanded. So at price equal to 0, the intercept shows the quantity demanded. So the intercept is the quantity demanded at price 0. So if the price is 0, quantity demanded is equal to intercept, that is 40. Chalo, coming to the next question. So which of the following situation would cause a shift in the demand curve rather than movement? So I hope you know that movement in the demand curve is because of the changes in price. So with the decrease in price, the demand is increasing. So this causes movement from one point to another point. But shift is because of the external factor. So the price is same, but the demand is changing because of some external factor, the other factor other than the price. So because of some other factor other than the price, there is change in demand that is happening. So a decrease in price of good X leading to change in demand of good X. So this is not correct because price causes movement. The price causes movement. Temporary discount. So discount is on price, so price causes movement. Rise in consumer income. If the income of consumer is increasing, the demand will increase. At the same price, if the income is increasing, the demand will increase. This causes shift in the demand curve. Very good. That is the answer. So good to see that everyone is able to answer this question. This is good. Okay. So the price, with the change in price, the demand is changing. This causes movement in the demand curve. The shift happens because let's say income is increasing. So with that, the demand will increase at the same price. Okay. So income is increasing, because of that demand is increasing. So that is causing shift in the demand curve. So these are the reasons for the shift in the demand curve. If the people have more taste and preference for a product, so they will demand more of that product. If the people have more income, if there is more population, so the demand will increase and such. So this causes shift because at the same price, because of increase in population, because of increase in income, because of increase in taste and preference, the demand is increasing or the demand is changing at the same price. So the movement happens because price is changing, demand is changing. Shift happens that at the same price, the demand is changing. At the same price, the demand is changing, increasing or decreasing. So rightward shift or leftward shift. Now, coming to the next question. Yes, try to answer this question, that which of the following statements is incorrect in context of price elasticity of demand. So if you know about the price elasticity of demand, that shows that with a percentage change in price, there is a percentage change in demand. So in context of price elasticity of demand, which of the following statement is incorrect, that you have to tell me. Okay. So in the price elasticity of demand, remember two, three things very clearly, that the luxury goods or the goods that have more substitutes, the luxury goods, the goods that have more substitutes have elastic demand, while the necessary goods or the goods that have less substitutes have inelastic demand. So now if you know these factors, you will be easily able to answer this question. So I'm getting the answer 4 ka D, that is absolutely correct. The demand for commodities with many close substitutes, more close substitutes, elastic demand, correct. Commodities whose consumption cannot be postponed, that means it is a necessary good, its consumption cannot be postponed. So it has less elastic demand, inelastic demand or less elastic demand. Okay, this is also correct. Inelastic demand or less elastic demand. Okay, luxury goods tend to have more elastic demand, luxury goods more elastic demand. Necessary goods have less elastic demand or inelastic demand, so it does not have highly elastic, it has less elastic demand. Okay, habit forming goods, they have inelastic demand. This is also correct, that habit forming goods, they also have inelastic demand, its demand cannot change easily, like the cigarettes or for the alcoholic products and such. If it is a habit has been formed, so demand will not change easily, so inelastic demand is there. Okay, so all the other statements is correct, only the D was incorrect. So in the price elasticity of demand, the luxury or non-essential goods, the goods that have more substitutes, have elastic demand. Necessary goods have inelastic demand, or even the habit forming goods like the cigarettes, alcohol and such, they also have inelastic demand. Okay, now which of the following statement is incorrect in regards to cross elasticity of demand or income elasticity of demand? Explain E point. So habit forming goods means the cigarettes, they also have inelastic demand. Their demand cannot change easily, because even if the price is increasing slightly, let's say price is increasing by 10%, the demand will fall only by 1% or only by 2%, because the people are habitual. So even if price is increasing by 10% from 10 rupees to 11 rupees, let's say the demand is only falling by 2%, that is from 100 to 98. So this is the idea, that the habit forming goods like cigarettes, they have inelastic demand. The demand does not change much. Chalo. Now coming to the next question, which of the following statements is incorrect in regards to cross elasticity of demand or income elasticity of demand? So in cross elasticity of demand, you have substitute goods or complementary or complement goods. In the income elasticity of demand, you have normal goods in which there are luxury goods or the necessary goods. Okay, and income elasticity of demand also have inferior goods. Okay, so substitute goods have positive cross elasticity of demand. Tea and coffee, they have positive cross elasticity of demand because they are substitute goods. If the price for coffee is increasing, many of the people will shift to tea. Many of the people will shift to tea and will start demanding more tea because coffee is becoming very expensive. It is getting out of budget for many of the people. So the people will start demanding tea rather. Okay, so they have positive cross elasticity of demand. If the price of coffee is increasing, the demand for tea will increase. Luxury goods have positive income elasticity of demand. So normal goods have positive income elasticity of demand. So luxury goods, necessary goods, they are normal goods. So they have positive income elasticity of demand. Bread and butter, now they are complement goods, the bread and butter. So if the price of butter is increasing, the price of butter, it is increasing rapidly. So the demand for bread might decrease because the people, if they eat the bread with butter only, so if the price of butter is increasing but is becoming very expensive, so many of the people will decrease the demand for bread. They start consuming less of bread. Like petrol prices, if petrol prices are increasing, the people will demand less of cars. Okay, so they have negative cross elasticity of demand. They have negative cross elasticity of demand. The complement goods, they have negative cross elasticity of demand. Necessary goods, they have positive income elasticity of demand. Now the answer is inferior goods. Inferior goods have positive income elasticity of demand? No, inferior goods have negative income elasticity of demand, because if your income is increasing, the demand for inferior goods will decrease. So income has the inferior goods have negative income elasticity of demand. If your income is increasing, your demand for inferior goods will decrease. So inferior goods have negative income elasticity of demand. That's why the answer here is E. Got it? Yes, very good everyone. Gave the right answer. So cross elasticity of demand, substitute goods, they have positive cross elasticity of demand. Complement goods have negative cross elasticity of demand. Unrelated goods have zero because they are unrelated goods, like car and butter. They are not related with each other, so they have zero cross elasticity of demand. The income elasticity of demand, the luxury goods, the necessary goods, they have positive because they are normal goods, so they have positive income elasticity of demand, while the inferior goods have negative income elasticity of demand. Luxury goods, with the change in income, their demand changes by a lot. That's why their income elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Necessary goods, with the change in income, the demand for the necessary goods increases but slightly only. So they have less than 1 but greater than 0 income elasticity of demand. With the increase in income, the demand is increasing for necessary goods but slightly only. So with the increase in income, the demand is increasing for necessary goods but slightly only. So that's why they have more than 0 but less than 1 income elasticity of demand. Okay. Now coming to the next question, a very easy question. Read the first line and try to answer. If the price of a product is falling by 10%, there is a percentage change in price by 10% and the percentage change in demand is 3%. So which kind of price elasticity of demand is this? Which of the following best describes the nature of the price elasticity of demand? So I hope you will be easily able to answer this question. If you know the basics of the price elasticity of demand, then this is a very, very easy question. A phase 1 level question, I can say. So what is the answer? What should be the answer here? The demand is unitary elastic, perfectly inelastic, inelastic, elastic or perfectly elastic. So which of the 5? Yes. So I'm getting the answer from Ashish, Himanshu, Rishi, Prithvi. Everyone has given the right answer. The answer is C. The demand is inelastic. With the percentage change in price, there is a lesser percentage change in demand. With the price decreasing by a lot, demand is increasing slightly only. So you can understand that this is inelastic demand. This is inelastic demand. Very good. So let me show you the numbers. So unitary elastic means that the percentage change in price is equal to percentage change in demand. So if price is increasing by 10%, demand will decrease by 10%. Demand is perfectly inelastic. With a percentage change in price, there is 0% change in demand. In elastic demand with a percentage change in price of 10%, the percentage change in demand is less. Sorry. The percentage change in demand is less, that is by 3% only. Elastic demand percentage change in price is less than percentage change in demand. Demand is perfectly elastic. There is infinite change in demand. So that is the idea. Okay. Chalo. Now a firm under perfect competition finds that its average total cost, basically exceed the market price, exceed the price. So average cost is greater than average revenue. Average cost is more than average revenue. So which of the following is true? Which of the following is true? That you have to tell me. So first of all, at the equilibrium point where the MR is equal to MC, where the marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, and the marginal cost cut the MR from below. So this is the equilibrium point. At the equilibrium point, if the average cost per unit cost is greater than per unit revenue, so this is the case of loss. The company is having the loss. But should the company shut down here? The company will only shut down when the average revenue is equal to average variable cost. That is, the average revenue, the price, the per unit revenue is only able to cover the variable cost. So the firm incurs a loss but continues to produce if the average revenue is greater than average variable cost. Okay. So basically a firm incurs a loss but continues to produce if the price is greater than average variable cost. Okay. So this is the idea. Yes. So C is the answer, that even though loss is happening, this is the condition of loss, average total cost. Average cost is greater than average revenue. So loss is happening, but the company will shut down only when the average revenue is equal to average variable cost and such. Okay. Or the average revenue is becoming less than average variable cost, then the company will shut down. Right now, the firm can decide to continue producing or not. So this is the idea. So firm is incurring the loss as the cost is more than the revenue, but the firm will continue to produce if the firm is able to cover its average revenue is greater than, that is price is greater than average variable cost. So revenue is able to cover the variable cost and more than the variable cost. So this is the idea. So C is the answer. Okay. So here the price is equal to MC. The average revenue is equal to average cost is equal to marginal cost, ensures the output efficiency. But if price is less than average cost, the firm incur losses. It continues to operate in short run as long as price is greater than average variable cost. So price is less than average cost, the average revenue is less than average cost, but the average revenue is greater than average variable cost. The average revenue is able to cover the average variable cost. When the price is equal to average variable cost, then the firm can decide to continue producing or to shut down. Usually the firm decides to shut down. So if the price is greater than average variable cost, the firm continues to operate in short run as long as price is greater than, the average revenue is greater than average variable cost. Even though losses are happening, at least the average variable cost is getting covered. Okay. So what are the conditions? So loss is when average cost is greater than average revenue. Normal profits are when average revenue is equal to average cost, and abnormal profits are, supernormal profits are when the average revenue is greater than average cost. Chalo. Any confusion? Anyone? Now, in a perfectly competitive industry, firms are currently earning supernormal profits in the short run. Which of the following correctly describes the long run adjustment? So in the perfectly competitive industry, as you know, that there is freedom to entry and exit. And in the long run, the firms can only earn normal profits in the perfect competition. In the perfect competition, the firms can only earn normal profit. Okay. So there is freedom to entry and exit, and in the long run, the firms can only earn normal profit under the perfect competition. So which of the following correctly describes the long run adjustment? Very good. New firms will enter the market. So if under the perfect competition, there are supernormal profits that are earned in the short run, so new firms will start entering the market in the long run. In the long run, new firms will enter the market. So supply will increase. With more supply in the market, prices will reduce, and from this supernormal profits, the firms will earn only normal profits. So new firms will enter the market until firms only earn normal profits in the long run. So in the short run, if in the short run if in the short run there are supernormal profits, the new firms will enter the market in the long run and there will be only normal profits in the long run. So B is the answer. Very good, everyone. So in the long run, you can see that there are normal profits, and in the perfect competition, the firms are producing at the minimum. The firms are producing. So in the long run, the firms are earning only normal profits and the firms are producing at the minimum of average cost. So the firms do not have any excess capacity. The firms are producing at the minimum of average cost. Okay. Now coming to the next question. In a monopoly, if the firm is currently producing a quantity where marginal cost is less than marginal revenue, which of the following statements is correct? So basically, marginal cost is less than marginal revenue. So what should happen? The additional cost is less than additional revenue. So there should be more production that should happen, right? The firm should increase the production to increase the profit. So basically, in the monopoly, this is your average revenue, this is the marginal revenue, this is the marginal cost. Now, if the production is here, that is marginal cost is less than marginal revenue. If the marginal cost is less than marginal revenue, so there should be more production that should happen until the marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. So there should be more production that should happen. The firm is not producing at the profit maximizing output because the MC is less than MR. The MC should be equal to MR if the output has to be produced at the profit maximizing point. Okay, got it? So A cannot be the answer. Is this clear? D is the answer, because if the MC, that is marginal cost, is less than MR, so there should be more production that should be happening until the MC becomes equal to MR, and MC is cutting MR from below. So chalo. So basically the output, if you are producing at this level where the MC is less than MR, so there should be more production that should happen. You should continue producing until your marginal cost is equal to MR and MC cuts MR from below. Chalo. Now coming to the next question about the excess capacity. So a question has come in the previous years from the excess capacity point of view. So try to answer this question, read the statements very carefully and try to answer this question. A monopoly, monopolistic competition, all of these competitions, all of these market structure, they have excess capacity. Only the perfect competition does not have excess capacity in the long run. Because in the perfect competition, in the long run, the firms are producing at the profit maximizing point where the average cost is equal to average revenue. Here the normal profits are being earned and the production is happening. Production is happening at the minimum of average cost. So in the perfect competition, in the long run, the firms are producing at the minimum of average cost and this is the profit maximizing point. But in the other market structures, in the monopolistic competition, let's say this is the minimum point. This is the minimum point of the average cost. This is the minimum point of the average cost, but the production is happening at this level. The output is produced at Y1 while the minimum of average cost is Y2. So this is the excess capacity. So firms, very good everyone, C is the right answer. So firms are producing below the minimum of long run average cost curve. The firm is producing less than the minimum of long run average cost. Okay, so we are not producing at the minimum of average cost, we are producing less than the minimum of average cost. Okay, so that's why there is excess capacity that is present. Very good everyone. Now coming to the next question, which of the following characteristic is not a feature of monopolistic competition? So if you know about the monopolistic competition, you will be easily able to answer this question. So try to answer this question. Let's see how many of you are able to answer this question. Which of the following characteristics is not a feature of monopolistic competition? In the monopolistic competition, there are large number of sellers and buyers in the market. The sellers are selling differentiated products which are close substitutes of each other. The monopolistic competition, the monopolistic firms have downward sloping demand curve, that is the average revenue curve, and downward sloping marginal revenue curve. So the demand curve is not perfectly elastic. Perfectly elastic demand curve is only in the perfect competition. The perfectly elastic demand curve is in the perfect competition, not in monopolistic competition. So C is the answer. It is not a feature of monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition has freedom of entry and exit, non-price competition where advertisements are happening and such. So only the C is the right answer. The C, that is the demand curve, is perfectly elastic. This is not a feature of monopolistic competition. Okay. So you can read the characteristics of monopolistic competition: large number of sellers and buyers. Monopolistic competition have large number of sellers and buyers, differentiated products which are close substitutes, free entry and exit of the firms. The demand curve is negatively sloped. Profit maximization is the focus. Non-price competition is there. The firms are bearing the advertisement cost, selling cost. Okay. Next, in Bertrand's duopoly model, the equilibrium price tends to equal what? So in the Bertrand duopoly model, the basic assumption is that firm A is changing its price, thinking that the other firm will keep its price constant, and the firm B is changing its price, thinking that the other firm will keep its price constant. Okay, so in the Bertrand duopoly model, it is said that the firms are quite naive. They do not learn from their past mistakes. They think that I can change my price, the other firm will not change its price. Okay, so in the Bertrand duopoly model, the equilibrium, a stable equilibrium is achieved. The stable equilibrium is achieved, and the equilibrium price tends to equal the competitive price, So this is the idea. In the Bertrand duopoly model, the duopolist will decide about the price, assuming that the other firm will not change its price. The stable equilibrium is achieved with unlimited production capacity. So in the Bertrand model, it is assumed that there is unlimited production capacity that the firms have. Equilibrium price will be the competitive price. Very good. So this is the answer. Okay. Now coming to the next question, try to answer this question. See, the MCQs that I have brought today, they are based on the PYQs. So you are getting the level of questions that come in the SEBI Grade A phase 1 as well as in the phase 2 examination. Okay. So try to answer this question now. So according to Edgeworth's duopoly model, the Edgeworth model is the extension of the Bertrand model. Edgeworth model also assumed the same thing, that firm A changes its price thinking that the firm B will keep its price constant, and firm B is changing its price thinking that firm A will keep its price constant. But in the Edgeworth duopoly model, there is limited production capacity that the firms have. Which of the following best describes the behavior of prices over time? Yes, very good. The disequilibrium. Prices oscillate irregularly between monopoly and competitive levels. Okay. So prices, they keep on oscillating between the monopoly prices and the competitive prices. So that means in the Edgeworth duopoly model, the equilibrium is not achieved. There is disequilibrium. Okay, and the prices keep on oscillating. The prices keep on moving between the monopoly prices and the competitive prices. So this is the answer. So C is the answer. So here you can see that at the Edgeworth, the duopolist, in the Edgeworth duopoly model, it is assumed that the firm can change its price. A firm is thinking that I can change my price, the other firm will keep its price constant. The firm B is thinking the same, that I can change my price, the other firm will keep its price constant. So the disequilibrium is present in the Edgeworth duopoly model. There is perpetual disequilibrium, there is continuous disequilibrium. The price keeps oscillating between monopoly prices and the competitive prices. This is because the Edgeworth duopoly model has limited production capacity, while in the Bertrand duopoly model there was unlimited production capacity. Okay. Now coming to the next question, try to answer this question. Let's see that if you are able to answer this question or not. So try to answer this. So now the question is on the Chamberlain small group model of oligopoly. So try to answer this. So here, according to Chamberlain small group model of oligopoly, a stable monopoly price can be achieved without collusion. So the firms can achieve the monopoly price. The firm can have the joint profit maximization. They can have the joint profit maximization without collusion. Because the firms are naive? No. Firms collude secretly? No. In the Chamberlain model, it has been said that there is no collusion that is required. The firm just need to know about the mutual interdependence. The firm just need to recognize their mutual interdependence. Once the firms recognize their mutual interdependence, the firms can have the joint profit maximization. The firms can charge the monopoly price. So firms recognize, if the firms recognize the mutual interdependence, both the direct and indirect effect of their decisions and the effect of their actions on the rivals. That means the firms, when they recognize the mutual interdependence, the firms can have the monopoly price and the joint profit maximization. So C is the answer here. Okay. Firms ignore cost? No. Firms follow Bertrand price? No. Okay, so C is the answer. So Chamberlain model, here I have given you the brief about the Chamberlain model. Basically, the Chamberlain has said that if the firms, they recognize the they recognize the mutual interdependence, that the firms are mutually interdependent on each other. One firm's action affect the other firms, and the other firm will also take the action. That means if one firm is decreasing the price to capture the market share, the other firm will also retaliate and will decrease the price so that it do not lose the market share. So if the firms recognize the mutual interdependence and the action the other firm will take because of the decision of the first firm. So in this case, if the firms recognize the mutual interdependence, the firms can reach to the monopoly solution and charge monopoly prices and have the joint profits being maximized. Okay, so this is the idea of the Chamberlain. Now, Sweezy's Kinked demand curve. You must have read about the Kinked demand curve. Okay, so in the Kinked demand curve under the oligopoly market, this is the price that is decided. So this is the rigid price that cannot change, because if the prices are increased, the firms will lose a lot of demand. If the price is decreased, the firm will not have much increase in demand. So basically, the Sweezy has said that the Kinked demand curve shows the rigid price. The price cannot increase, because if price is increased, a lot of demand will be lost. Price cannot be decreased, because if price is decreased, demand will not increase much. So the upper part of the Kinked demand curve, is relatively more elastic, and lower part of the Kinked demand curve is relatively more elastic. So B is the answer, that upper part of the Kinked demand curve is more elastic. Very good. Everyone has given the right answer. So this is correct. The upper part is elastic and the lower part is inelastic or less elastic. And the equilibrium is at the kink. That means at this level, the equilibrium is, and this is the equilibrium price. This is the equilibrium quantity. Chalo. Barometric price leadership is characterized by what? Like just the basic feature you need to know, just the basic characteristic you need to know. And if you know the basic characteristic of the barometric price leadership, you will be able to answer the question. And try to think, what is a barometer? That is some indicator that is providing you some indicator, some measure. So barometric price leadership is of the largest firm? No. A firm barometric price leader is the one that is a firm chosen as a leader based on its ability to forecast market changes. So price leadership, a price leader, that means a leader in the oligopoly market. A leader in the oligopoly market can be based on the lowest cost. That I have the lowest cost, I'm producing at the lowest cost, so I am the price leader. Or a dominant firm, a very large firm, that can become a price leader. Or there can be barometric price leadership. Barometric price leadership. In this, a firm is chosen as a leader based on the ability of the firm to forecast market changes. So B is the answer here. This is the barometric price leadership. Okay. So price leadership can be on the basis of the low cost firm. Low cost firm can be price leader because the firm has the lowest of the cost. A firm can be price leader on the basis of the dominant, the large firm. The large firm, it has the largest size, so it is becoming the price leader. Or the price leadership can be barometric price leadership. In this model, it is formally or informally agreed that all firms will follow the changes of price, the increase in price or the decrease in price as decided by the barometer price leader. So this is the idea, because the barometer price leader, it has the good knowledge of the prevailing conditions in the market, and it can provide the idea about the future development in the market. It can forecast better than others the future development in the market. So barometric price leadership, this is a price leader. It has a price leader. Let's say XYZ company is a price leader that has been chosen by the other companies because this company has good forecasting capability for the future. Chalo. Now coming to the next question. Try to answer this. No, this is barometric price leadership. Now coming to this question. You have GDP at MP. You have to find the NNP at FC. So from gross to net, what will happen? You have to go from gross to net. Deduct depreciation. Domestic to national. Domestic to national. So add the net factor income from abroad. Market price to factor cost. Market to factory. So deduct the indirect taxes, add the subsidies. So GDP at MP is 500. Deduct depreciation 200. Add the net factor income from abroad, that is negative 50. Deduct the indirect taxes, and add the subsidies, that is deduct the net indirect taxes of 300. So here the answer will be, yes, 4,450. This will be your answer. So NNP at FC is 4,450. So if you know the conversion, that if you have to go from domestic to national, add the net factor income from abroad. If you have to go from gross to net, add the deduct the depreciation. Deduct the depreciation. If you have to go from the market price to factor cost, deduct the indirect taxes, add the subsidies, that means deduct the net indirect taxes. So if you know the conversion, you will get the answer. Okay. Chalo. Coming to the next question, that which of the following must be included when calculating national income through the income method? So try to answer this question. If you know the income method, you will be able to answer this question, okay? So try. So basically, income method calculates NDP at FC by adding the compensation of employees, the rent plus profit plus interest plus mixed income of self-employed. Okay, then NDP at FC, in this add the net factor income from abroad. You will get NNP at FC, that is national income. Domestic to national, add net factor income from abroad. So compensation of employee, rent, profit, interest, mixed income of self-employed. So mixed income of self-employed must be added in the must be included when calculating national income. So E is the answer. Very good, everyone. E is the answer. Okay. Value of intermediate consumption. This is deducted actually in the value, in the gross value added method. We take the value of output, deduct the value of intermediate consumption. So intermediate consumption value is actually deducted. Windfall gains, the lotteries, such kind of windfall gains like the money from the lotteries and such, this is not included in national income. Value of second hand goods are not included in national income. Transfer payments are known as unilateral payments like the unemployment allowances, old age pension. These kind of transfer payments, the unilateral payments, they are also not included in the national income. They are also not included in the national income, because national income is what? It is earned income. When you are providing your land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, then you are getting the rent, wages, interest or profit. So national income is the earned income. You are earning something. You are earning the mixed income because you are self-employed. But transfer payments like unemployment allowances, old age pension, they are not earned income. They are transfer payments. They are unilateral payments. You are not giving anything to the government, but the government is giving you unemployment allowances, let's say, or old age pension, let's say. Okay. So these are not included in national income, while the mixed income of self-employed is included in the national income. So compensation of employees, operating surplus, that is rent, interest, profit, all of this is included in the national income. This is the idea. As well as we have the expenditure method also, in which we add consumption plus investment expenditure plus government expenditure plus net exports to calculate GDP at MP, and then we can convert it into national income. Okay. Then we have gross value added method, value of output minus intermediate consumption. Chalo. Correct. So all of this, like transfer payments, are not included in the national income, and you can read the rest, that which is included, which is not included. Now corporate profit tax is not included in the national income separately, because corporate tax is already a part of profit. Dividend is already a part of profit. Undistributed profit is already a part of profit. So if you are including the profit, you will not include it separately again, because that will lead to double counting of the same income. So corporate profit tax is, let's say, 100, dividend is 500, undistributed profit is, let's say, 100 only. Okay. So if you have included the profits, you will not include the corporate profit tax separately, because it is not required. Chalo. Now, which of the following changes will increase GDP at FC without changing GDP at MP? So you have the GDP at MP which is not changing. So how will GDP at FC will increase? What will happen to increase the GDP at FC? What do you think? What will increase to increase the GDP at FC? If indirect taxes is increasing, then GDP at FC will decrease because indirect taxes are deducted. So it should not increase, right? Subsidies are added. So if subsidies increase, can we say that GDP at FC will increase? If subsidies are increasing, can we say GDP at FC is increasing? Right now? So basically, without changing the GDP at MP, we want to change the GDP at FC. We want to increase the GDP at FC. If indirect taxes are increased, GDP at FC will decrease. So this should not happen. If subsidies are increased, it is added. So GDP at FC will increase. So yes, increase in subsidies should be the answer. Increase in subsidies, because we have to increase the GDP at FC. Gross is same, domestic product is same. Market price and factor cost, like how the factor cost will be higher than the market price because of the subsidies. Got it? Is there any confusion in this question? So first of all, you have to see that, okay, GDP at MP, GDP at FC. How the GDP at FC will be increasing? GDP, gross domestic product. Gross and domestic product is same. We have to convert market price to factor cost. We have to see how factor cost is higher than market price. That is by adding the subsidies. So increase in subsidies. Chalo. Now, manufacturing comes under a very easy question. A very easy question. Manufacturing comes under which of the following sectors of the economy? Primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, quaternary or quaternary? Manufacturing comes under which of the following sectors of the economy? Very good. Secondary sector is the answer. So this kind of question has come in your PFRT grade A examination in the phase 1. Manufacturing comes under secondary sector. Primary sector, it includes all the activities that are related to natural resources like your agriculture, mining, quarrying, fishing, livestock. Okay. Secondary sector includes all the processing, manufacturing, construction. Then the tertiary sector includes all the traditional services that are being provided. Traditional services like your trade, hotel, transportation, communication, education, recreational activity, health facilities and such. Quaternary sector and quaternary sector, these are quite new terms. We can say quaternary sector, it includes all the activities that are related to the knowledge economy, that is related to the research and development, innovation and such. Quaternary sector is related to the decision making, the top decision makers in a company or in the country. Okay, so this is the idea. The primary sector includes all the activities that are related to natural resources like agriculture, forestry, grazing, hunting, gathering, fishing and such. Secondary sector includes manufacturing, processing, construction. Tertiary sector includes all the traditional services. Then fourth sector of the economy is quaternary sector, that includes intellectual activities, innovation, research and development. And then there is the quaternary sector. Quaternary sector includes the highest levels of decision making in the society or economy. The National Statistics Office releases the data for primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector only. This is the idea. Now, coming to the next one. What is real GDP? Try to answer this question, a very easy question that you can answer with the help of the basic formula of the GDP deflator. So what is the formula of the GDP deflator? If you know the formula of the GDP deflator, you will be able to answer this. GDP deflator is your nominal GDP divided by real GDP. So you have to find the real GDP multiplied by 100. So real GDP you have to find, nominal GDP is 15,000 and GDP deflator is 120. So what do you have to do? Yes, real GDP 15,000, this will come here, this has gone here, so it is 120 multiplied by 100. So if, what is the answer here? Very good, 12,500 crores. This is the answer. So basically, if you know the formula, you can answer this question. Yes, the calculation is needed here. So if you think that a lot of calculation is required, then you can leave the question, like you can mark the question for the last, but if you know the formula and the formula is easy, like this kind of question where you are using the direct formula, then you can solve the question in a fast manner. Okay, chalo. Personal disposable income equals, so personal disposable income equals which of the following? So personal disposable income equal the personal income. Do we add the direct taxes, deduct the direct taxes, deduct the indirect taxes, deduct the depreciation, or add or deduct the transfer income? What is the idea here? How can we convert the personal income into personal disposable income? From the personal income, we pay the direct taxes. So direct taxes have to be deducted. So after paying the direct taxes, whatever is left, let's say your personal income was 1000, you have given the tax of 100. So whatever is left, that is 900, is your personal disposable income that you can save from, and from this you can consume. Let's say you are consuming 800, you are saving 100. Okay. So personal disposable income is personal income minus direct taxes, okay. That's why here it is given to confuse you. It is minus direct taxes. So personal disposable income is personal income minus direct taxes minus the miscellaneous government receipts. Miscellaneous government receipts like the fees, fines by the government, it is a very small amount, so it is usually ignored. So personal income minus direct taxes is personal disposable income. Personal disposable income is used for saving plus consumption. Okay, this is the disposable income from which the people can save and consume. Next is, according to the classical model, which of the following ensures that aggregate demand is always sufficient to purchase full employment output? So which, like basically in the classical model, there is a statement that has been given. What is the statement? That supply creates its own demand. So there is no deficiency of demand, and there is never this case of overproduction. The resources is fully employed, the labor is fully employed, the output is produced at the full employment level. Now, if you know that this saying in the classical model is given by J.B. Say, John Baptist Say, so it is known as Say's law. Say's law states that supply creates its own demand, and there are flexible wages and prices under the classical model. So basically the C is the answer here. Okay. So C is the answer, and the rest of the things you can read about the classical economics. The classical economist believed in full employment. Supply creates its own demand. There is no overproduction that happens. The economy is having the full employment. Wages and prices are fully flexible. There is perfect competition in the labor and the product market. Labor is homogeneous. All the labor is same. They have same skills. They are putting same efforts and such. So this is the idea. And money is only used as a medium of exchange. Now, try to answer this, that in the classical saving and investment mechanism is saving initially exceed investment, then what will happen? So basically, classicals have given this diagram. This is investment with the interest rate. Investment is decreasing. If there is higher interest rate, there will be less investment, less loans for investment. If there is higher interest rate, there will be more saving. Okay, this is what classicals believed, that more interest rate means more saving. The equilibrium is where the saving is equal to investment. Now, here it is said that if saving initially exceeds, that means interest rate is very high and the saving exceeds investment, then what will happen? Okay, some of the students are saying E, some of the students are saying B. Interest rate will fall. Okay, interest rate is falling. Investment will fall. If the interest rate is falling, will investment fall? No. If the interest rate is falling, investment will increase. Investment will increase. And saving will reduce. Okay. So if interest rate is falling, interest rate will fall. With the falling interest rate, investment will increase and saving will reduce. Okay. So E is the answer here. Basically, this is your saving, this is your investment, this is the interest rate. If the saving initially exceeds the investment, interest rate will fall to bring the equilibrium, and with the falling interest rate, investment will increase and saving will reduce. Chalo. So E is the answer. Okay. Read the statements carefully. Just don't read the starting point. Read the statements carefully so that you are giving the right answer. Chalo. So if the saving is higher than the investment, interest rate will fall. With falling interest rate, investment will increase, saving will decrease. Chalo. Now, coming to the next question. In the classical theory, the demand for labor depends upon how much labor will be hired. What is the condition for the hiring of the labor under the classical theory? So, classical theory has very clearly stated that only that level of labor will be hired where dash is equal to dash. where dash is equal to dash, where the real wages are equal to marginal product of labor. If the real wages are 3, the additional product of labor should be 3. At this level, the labor will be hired. Very good, Himanshu. Very good. Ini sir. So the answer is B. So in the classical theory, the demand for labor, it has been clearly stated the labor will only be hired till the level where the real wage is equal to marginal product of labor. So the labor is hired on the basis of real wage relative to the marginal product of labor. So B is the answer. So competitive profit maximizing firm hires the labor until the real wage, that is nominal wages divided by price level, the real wage is equal to marginal product of labor. Real wage is equal to marginal product of labor. Read the, now this is a kind of question that I've given, like in the PFRD grade A also, there was a very detailed question, like a long question came. The question was on the base, like the question was the easy question, it was on the consumption function only, but the question was very lengthy, that took a lot of time of many of the students, and many of the students got confused in the option. So this is a kind of question that I've brought. If let's say you are finding it hard to find the answer, then leave the question, mark the question for later, so that when you get the time in the later on period, then you can focus on this question. In the initial period, you should not be stuck on a very lengthy question if you are not able to find the answer in 10-20 seconds. Okay, so mark the question for later, but here you have the time, read the question carefully and then try to answer this question. But such kind of lengthy question, usually the questions are like statement, like the questions are one-liners. But if a lengthy question is coming where the options are very lengthy and you are finding it very hard to find the answer, the options are complicated, so you can mark this question for later. Do not ever get stuck in a question. Do not put more than 50 seconds, more than 1 minute in one question. Mark this for later, so that when you later have time, after getting your brain relaxed that okay, I've completed the paper, now I can focus on this question. Chalo. Okay, I'm getting the answer C. What about the others? Some are saying B, some are saying C. What is the answer for 26? I want the answer from all of you. Okay, Ashish has also said C. What about the others? C. Classical aggregate supply curve is vertical. Classical aggregate supply curve is vertical. That is, output is produced at the full employment level. Prices may rise or fall. Prices are flexible. Money wages are fixed? No, money wages are also flexible. Na? Classical assume that prices and wages are flexible. They can change. Variation in money supply influence real variables? No. Classical dichotomy has very clearly stated that monetary variables, money variables, nominal variables cannot affect the real variables. Not true. Output is determined solely by real factors. So output, that is real variable, that is output, is determined by other real variables like land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship. So this seems correct. The meaning that changes in price level cannot influence. So changes in price level, if the price is changing, it cannot influence the output. So this seems correct. C is the correct answer. Okay, C is the correct answer here. Aggregate demand do not shift due to monetary or fiscal factors. No, aggregate demand can shift. The aggregate demand, if the money supply is increasing, if we have more money, so aggregate demand might increase. Aggregate demand can increase. Investment decisions may depend on level of income. No, as per classicals, the investment depends upon interest rate. Okay, so only the C statement is correct, and that's why that is the answer. Very good, very good. That is also a very good way. Inisira has said correct, that if you do not know the correct answer, use the elimination method. That okay, first cannot be true. First cannot be true because in the first statement, wages are fixed. This is not true for classical economist. Variation in money supply influence real variables. So money variables, monetary variables can never affect the real variables. Not true. Not true. Aggregate demand do not shift due to monetary factors. No, aggregate demand can shift because of any of the factor. If the money supply is increasing, people have more money in their hands, so demand can increase. So this is, but in the classical framework, it affects only the general price level and not the quantity of output produced. So do not shift. No, aggregate demand can actually shift. The aggregate demand can shift. Okay, so this is also not true. Investment decision depend upon interest rate as per classical theory. Investment depends upon interest rate. So this is also not true. So only the C is true. Okay. Now, coming to the next question, effective demand is determined at the point where. Effective demand is a very favorite topic of SEBI PFRDA. They have asked it in the phase 1 in the different years. Okay, so effective demand is determined at the point where what is happening. So basically, effective demand is where the aggregate supply is equal to aggregate demand. The equilibrium is where there is effective demand, where there is aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. So this is effective demand, where the aggregate demand equals the aggregate supply. So B is the answer. B is the answer. Okay. Yes. Equilibrium point is where there is effective demand, where there is effective demand, where the aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. So this is effective demand. Here the aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. Next, in the Keynesian model, saving depends primarily on. As per Keynes, saving depends upon. Classical said that the savings depend upon interest rate, investment depends upon interest rate. This was said by classicals. But as per Keynes, saving depends upon income. Saving does not depend upon price level. Saving does not depend upon the wage rates, flexibility of wage rates. Okay. Saving does not depend upon the investment or the interest rate. Saving depends upon the current level of income. Saving depends upon the current level of income. Even the consumption depends upon the current level of income or the disposable income. Okay? So A is the answer. Saving depends upon the current level of income, the current level of disposable income, or the consumption also depends upon the current level of income or the current level of disposable income. Yes, no income, no saving. So current level of income. A is the answer. An upward shift in Keynesian aggregate demand curve leads to an increase in output. So basically, if we are talking about shift, this is your aggregate demand, this is your aggregate supply. So this is Keynesian cross. This is the Keynesian diagram now. So if there is upward shift in the Keynesian aggregate demand curve, it leads to an increase in the output. The output has increased from Y1 to Y2. This is because of which of the following reasons? Because of aggregate supply curve is vertical. No, aggregate supply curve is not vertical. Resources are fully employed. If the resources are fully employed, output cannot increase. Economy initially operates below full employment. So the Keynes has said that in the short run, the full employment is not achieved. So we have unemployed resources. We have unemployed resources that we can use to increase the output. So this can be true. Let's see other options also. Firms decrease their prices instantly in response to higher demand. If the firms are getting more demand, will they reduce the price? No. Investment spending always rise more than consumption? No. Because aggregate demand depends both on consumption and investment. So if aggregate demand is increasing, so it can be because of any of the factor. Okay. So C is the most appropriate answer. C is the most appropriate answer. Okay. The economy initially operates below the full employment. In the short run, the economy is below the full employment. So the unemployed resources can be employed to increase the output. So this is the answer. Now, the Keynes has assumed that aggregate demand is influenced by various factors, by the public and private factors. Private sector, like the households, we are doing the consumption, the firms, the households are doing the investment, but the government also influence the aggregate demand. Prices and especially wages respond slowly to change in supply and demand. Okay, so prices and especially wages, they respond slowly. They are sticky in nature. In the short run, as per Keynes, the prices and wages are sticky. Now, Keynesians believed that changes in aggregate demand. With the change in aggregate demand, the output changes. So this is also true. Okay. Now, given the consumption function, we have this consumption function. What are the marginal propensity to save and autonomous saving? Now try to answer this question. Try to answer this question. This is the consumption function. From the consumption function, we can get this saving function. Okay. This is autonomous consumption. So negative autonomous consumption is autonomous saving. So this is autonomous saving. This is the marginal propensity to consume. So marginal propensity to save is equal to 1 minus marginal propensity to consume. So MPS, marginal propensity to save, is 1 minus MPC. B is MPC. B is MPC. So 1 minus MPC is MPS. So here the marginal propensity to save is 1 minus MPC. 1 minus MPC. So B or C can be the answer. Now autonomous saving is autonomous disk saving basically. Autonomous disk saving is autonomous consumption in negative. So this is the answer. C is the answer. Okay. This is the answer. So consumption function, this is autonomous consumption. This is the slope, that is the MPC, and this is the income on which the consumption depends upon. Now saving is negative autonomous consumption. This is autonomous disk saving. Actually this is autonomous disk saving, okay, or autonomous saving or autonomous disk saving we can call. Now plus MPS, slope of the saving function is marginal propensity to save, that is 1 minus MPC, that is 1 minus B. So this is autonomous saving or autonomous disk saving we can say, because it is in negative, and this is marginal propensity to save, that is the slope. So 1 minus B is the MPS and autonomous saving. Chalo. So this is the idea, the saving is equal to Y minus consumption. Okay. So income minus consumption function is autonomous consumption plus B Y. So saving equal to Y minus A minus BY. So saving function will become minus A. Y minus BY is your Y minus BY is plus 1 minus BY. Okay. So this is your saving function that is derived from the consumption function. Chalo. Now here you can see that at zero level of income, there is autonomous disk saving that is happening. So saving is equal to the autonomous saving is negative autonomous consumption. So consumption is A plus BY. So saving function is negative A plus 1 minus BY. This is the saving function from the consumption function. It can be derived. Okay. Now next question is, if the MPC is 1, dash would be the size of the multiplier. The multiplier size would be what? If MPC is 1, if marginal propensity to consume is 1, that is in extreme case, because MPC lies between 0 and 1. MPC is between, Keynes has assumed that MPC is between 0 and 1. MPC is greater than 0 but less than 1. But if MPC is equal to 1, then what would be the size of multiplier? Let's say investment multiplier is 1 upon 1 minus MPC. So if MPC is 1, that means 1 minus 1. So investment multiplier will be infinite, because it will be 1 upon 0, so infinite. So multiplier will be infinity. Okay, because there is complete consumption. With the increase in income, MPC is equal to 1. That means with the increase in income, there is increase in consumption. This is what the MPC shows. So with the increase in income of 1000, the consumption is increasing by 1000. So production, like with the increase in consumption demand, the production will increase. With the increase in production, increase in income, consumption will further increase. With the increase in consumption, production is increasing. With the increase in production, the income is increasing. With the increase in income, the consumption is further increasing. This cycle will continue. So the multiplier will be infinite. The multiplier will be infinity. Okay? So this is the idea. If in the multiplier, if the MPC is equal to 1, so that is 1 upon 0, that is infinity. The multiplier will be infinity. But if the MPC is 0, then the investment multiplier will be 1 only. Will be the 1. Okay, so this is the idea. Now these are the different formulas of the multiplier. The investment multiplier is equal to 1 upon 1 minus MPC, that is 1 upon MPS. Government expenditure multiplier is also the same, 1 upon 1 minus MPC, that is 1 upon MPS. Foreign trade multiplier is 1 upon MPS plus MPM. MPS is marginal propensity to save, MPM is marginal propensity to import. Okay. Yes. Now coming to the next question, given the consumption function. So consumption function is 200 plus 0.6y. Autonomous investment is this 1000. Determine the equilibrium level of income and average propensity to consume. So equilibrium level of income is basically aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. Aggregate supply is your income level. Okay. So at the equilibrium level, your aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. Aggregate demand is consumption plus investment. Aggregate demand is consumption plus investment. So aggregate demand, consumption plus investment. Consumption is 200 plus 0.6y, investment is 1000. So what will be the answer here? The income minus 0.6y, this is 1200. So 0.4y is equal to 1200. So the answer y will be income. Equilibrium level of income is 3000, right? The equilibrium level of income is 3000. Got it? Any confusion here? So whenever you have to see the equilibrium level of income, the aggregate supply is equal to aggregate demand, or aggregate supply is your income, because total production, the total supply is equal to your total income that is generated in the economy. Total production, total production that has happened is equal to total income that is generated. So aggregate supply or income, we can write, okay, we can write it like aggregate supply or income, and this is equal to aggregate demand. Chalo. So 3000 is the equilibrium level of income. Now we have equilibrium level of income equal to consumption plus investment. So income is 3000, investment was 1000. So consumption is how much? Consumption is 2000. Consumption is 2000, okay? So if consumption is 2000, average propensity to consume is consumption divided by income. So consumption is 2000 divided by income. So that is 0.66. 0.66. Very good. So this is the question. This is the answer. Okay. So I just wanted you to have the clarity about the concept that how you can see the equilibrium level of income. The equilibrium level of income is where the aggregate supply is equal to aggregate demand. Aggregate supply is the total production, the total supply, the total income that is generated. So you can write income as income equal to aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is consumption plus investment. So this is how you can calculate the equilibrium level of income. Okay. And once you have the equilibrium level of income and the investment, you can find the consumption. And average propensity to consume is consumption divided by income. So in this one question, we have seen different concepts. Okay. So this is the idea. Chalo. So this is the answer. You can attempt this question again. If let's say you were not able to answer this question, so attempt it again, and this will be relevant for your phase 2 also, as this question is clearing many of the concepts here. Chalo, coming to the next question. As per the Fisher equation, the price level is directly and proportionately dependent on what? So price level is directly and proportionately dependent upon which factor as per Fisher equation, and the Fisher equation is written as. So Fisher equation, again, this is a very important equation on which, like in recent PFRD grade A examination also, in the phase 1 or phase 2, there was a direct question of Fisher equation, and in the SEBI examination also we have seen in the previous years there are questions on the Fisher equation. So Fisher equation is something that you must know about, that you cannot get confused in. Now try to answer this question. Only Himanshu is able to answer. What is the Fisher equation? Fisher equation is that MV is equal to PT. Money supply multiplied by velocity is equal to price level multiplied by transaction. Now it is assumed that, like the Fisher, that is a classical economist, assumed that the transactions cannot change, velocity cannot change. So if money supply is increasing, then the price level will increase to maintain the balance. So money supply, the Fisher equation is MV is equal to PT. So if T cannot change, V cannot change, with the increase in money supply, price level will increase in the same proportion to maintain the balance between the two sides. Okay. So money supply, the price level is directly and proportionately dependent upon money supply. If money supply is increasing, price level will increase in the direct manner, in the proportionate manner. Yes. Here, do we have the same option? Himanshu, do we have the same option? No. MP equal to VT is not the equation. MV is equal to PT is the option. Money supply multiplied by velocity is equal to price level multiplied by transactions. So this cannot be answered. This is the answer. That price level is directly and proportionately dependent upon money supply, and Fisher equation is written as MV is equal to PT. Okay. Again, see the options very, very carefully. So MV is equal to TP or PT. MV is equal to PT is the equation. Money supply multiplied by velocity is equal to price level multiplied by transaction. So velocity and transaction cannot change. So if money supply is increasing, price level will increase. Okay. Now, as per the Keynesian theory, aggregate demand will dash with the contractionary fiscal policy. This will lead to what? So So as per the Keynesian theory, this is the aggregate supply, this is the aggregate demand. Now there is contractionary fiscal policy. Contractionary fiscal policy means what? That there is decrease in government expenditure or there is increase in taxes. The government is decreasing. Aggregate demand is consumption plus investment plus government expenditure plus net export. So government is decreasing the government expenditure or the government is increasing the taxes. With increase in taxes, with more taxes, consumption will decrease. So either the consumption will decrease or government expenditure is decreasing. So aggregate demand will shift downwards. Very good. Aggregate demand will shift downwards. So the level of income will decrease. Level of income will decrease in income. So yes, C is the answer here. Okay. So basically, if there is contractionary, so this is expansionary policy where the government expenditure is increasing, but if there is contractionary, government expenditure is decreasing. So there is contractionary fiscal policy and the level of income will decrease. Contractionary fiscal policy, government expenditure will decrease in aggregate demand and decrease in level of income. Chalo. As per classical economist, money is used only as dash, while Cambridge economist places emphasis on the function of money as what? So as per classical economist, money is used for what? And as per Cambridge economist, as per Pigou and such, as per Cambridge economist, they say that the money is used as what? So you must know the theories. The basic idea should be clear that the classical economist believed that money is used only for transaction motive, is used only as medium of exchange. So at least classical economics, this theory should be clear. As per classical economist, money is used only as medium of exchange. So medium of exchange. So A or C can be the answer. Now Cambridge economist places emphasis on function of money as store of value. This is the idea. So here the C is the answer. Got it? So classical economist believe that money is used only as medium of exchange, while Cambridge economist places emphasis on function of money as store of value. So this is the idea. Cambridge economist like Marshall, Pigou, they said that the money is used as a store of value or wealth, because money has the inherent value. So money is the store of value, or money functions as the store of value, while the Fisher and the other classical economists believed that money is used only as a medium of exchange. So classical economists believed money is used as a medium of exchange for the transaction purposes, while the Cambridge economist believes that money is used as a store of value, as a store of wealth. Chalo. Now there is Friedman's theory of demand for money, which states that money has no inherent reason, or there is no particular reason for holding the money. Money is stored because it can provide various functions. So money is not kept or money is not demanded because of one particular reason. Money is demanded because the money can provide various functionality. Okay. So his approach, the Friedman approach to demand for money, does not consider any particular motive for holding the money, nor does it distinguish between the medium of exchange, store of value, speculative transaction, transactionary transactions and such. So money, just Friedman said that demand for money merely as an application. The people demand the money just for the different facilities, functionality it can provide. So classical economists said that we demand the money as a medium of exchange for the transaction purposes. Cambridge economists said that we demand the money to store the value, to store the wealth with us. But Friedman said that money does not have a single motive. The money is held by people because it provides various functionalities. Okay, this is the idea. Chalo. As per Keynes' liquidity preference theory, the demand for money is dash related to interest rate. So demand for money is inversely or directly related to interest rate, that you have to tell me. And the initial effect of an increase in money supply is to dash. What will happen? So basically, if we see the diagram, liquidity preference theory, this is the money supply. This is the demand for money. Here we have the interest rate. Here we have the quantity of money. So demand for money. The demand for money is dash related to interest rate. Here demand for money is downward sloping. So demand for money must be inversely related to interest rate. Demand for money is inversely related to interest rate. If interest rate is high, we will demand less money because interest rate is very high. So if we demand the money, if we take loans, basically, it will be very expensive. So we will demand less money. So at high interest rate, we will demand less money. Okay. and at the higher interest rate, we are investing the money. At the higher interest rate, we are getting more returns. So we are investing the money. So we are holding less money. As well as initial effect, with the increase in money supply, what will happen? The equilibrium interest rate will decrease. Before this was the interest rate, now this is the interest rate. Okay. So basically, there is inverse relationship between demand for money and rate of interest, and the increase in money supply decrease the level of interest rate. Chalo. So as per Keynes, we demand the money for transaction purposes. With the increase in income, we will demand more money for the transactions. Because if our income is increasing, we want to do more purchases, we want to have luxury bags, or we want to have good clothes and such. So we will do more transaction. With more income, demand for money will increase. Speculative demand with higher interest rate. At the higher interest rate, you will want to invest more. You will want to invest more of your money. You will want to save your money. You will want to invest your money at the higher interest rate because you are getting more returns. So you will demand less money. So that is speculative demand. At higher interest rate, there is less speculative demand. Okay? Demand for money is less. Chalo. With the increase in money supply, interest rate decreases. The equilibrium interest rate decreases. Now, coming to the next question, as the level of income in the economy increases, the demand for money will dash and the rate of interest will dash. So shift we are talking about. So basically, we are talking about demand for money. That depends upon rate of interest and level of income. If the level of income is increasing, demand for money will increase because of the transaction motive. This is money supply. Now, if the level of income is increasing, here we have interest rate, quantity of money. If the level of income is increasing, the demand for money will shift upwards. We will demand more money. If the level of income is increasing, the demand for money will increase. The rate of interest will, now the equilibrium rate of interest was here. Demand for money is increasing. So what will happen to the equilibrium rate of interest? If we are demanding more money, the interest rate will increase. See the diagram again. This is your money supply. This is the demand for money. If the level of income is increasing, that means we will demand more money. We have more income. We will demand more money for our transactions. So if demand for money is increasing, it is shifting upwards. If it is increasing, so equilibrium rate of interest, where money supply was equal to demand for money, that will also increase. Equilibrium rate of interest is also increasing. Okay, so C is the answer. If the demand for money is increasing with the increase in level of income, so the equilibrium rate of interest will also increase. LM curve will be steeper when there will be what? So what is the condition for a steep LM curve? The LM curve that shows the combination of rate of interest and level of income where the money market is at equilibrium. Where the demand for money is equal to supply for money. Okay. So LM curve shows the combination of rate of interest and level of income where the money market is at equilibrium. So which of the following conditions will lead to steeper LM curve? So I hope you know that for the steep LM curve, there should be large income elasticity of demand for money and small or low interest elasticity of demand for money, because demand for money depends upon level of income and rate of interest. So if we want a steep LM curve, the income elasticity of demand for money should be high. The demand for money should be more elastic, should be more changeable with the level of income, and the demand for money should be less elastic with the rate of interest, should be less dependent on rate of interest. So larger income elasticity of demand for money and lower interest elasticity for demand for money. Okay, so D is the answer. So if we want a steep LM curve, there should be more elastic demand for money for income. That means with the income, demand for money should change more, and with rate of interest, the demand for money should change less. So there should be less elastic demand for money for interest. Okay. Flatter LM curve, if you want a flat LM curve, so opposite will happen. There should be less elastic demand for money with the level of income. Demand for money should not change much with level of income, and there should be more elastic demand for money with rate of interest. The demand for money is changing a lot with the rate of interest. Yes. Chalo. Now steepness and flatness of IS curve. IS curve will be flat when there is higher multiplier, when there is higher investment multiplier, and when there is high when there is higher investment multiplier, as well as the investment is more responsive to the rate of interest. Okay, so IS curve will be flat when there is higher investment multiplier, as well as when there is higher responsiveness of the investment with the rate of interest. IS curve will be steep when there is less responsiveness of investment with the rate of interest, and when there is less investment multiplier. So you can read this, the steepness and flatness of IS curve. Okay, IS curve is flat when the investment demand is more responsive, when investment is more responsive to the rate of interest, and when there is high multiplier, then there is flat IS curve. Now, in the ISLM model, when money demand rises in equilibrium, in the usual case, there will be what? So in the ISLM model, if the money demand is rising in equilibrium, in the usual case, what will be the case? So basically, IS curve is downward sloping, LM curve is upward sloping. Here we have the rate of interest, here we have the level of income. This is the equilibrium rate of interest, this is the equilibrium level of income. Okay? So if the money demand rises, so basically with the demand for money increasing because of other factors, the LM curve will shift leftwards. LM curve will shift leftwards. Okay? If the LM curve is shifting leftwards, there will be rise in the rate of interest and fall in the level of income. So rise in the interest rate, increase in the interest rate, and fall in the income. So D is the answer actually. D is the answer. Basically, if the demand for money increases because of external reasons without any change in level of income, LM curve will shift leftward. So if there is the equilibrium, let's say this was the equilibrium. This was the equilibrium. First, this was the equilibrium. Here, this was the equilibrium. With the demand for money increasing, in the ISLM model, when demand for money rises because of external factors, let's say, because of external factors, because equilibrium was already achieved. So because of external factors, because level of income was decided. So because of external factors at the same level of income, because of external factors, the demand for money increased. With the increase in demand for money, the LM curve, with the increase in demand for money, the LM curve will shift left. LM curve shift left. With the leftward shift in LM curve, there is increase in interest rate and decrease in level of income. There is increase in interest rate and decrease in level of income. This is the idea. You have to keep in mind, see, there are certain conditions. If you remember these conditions, that okay, because of increase in demand for money at the same level of income, because of decrease in money supply, there is leftward shift in LM curve. Okay, because of decrease in demand for money at the same level of income, or because of increase in money supply, there will be rightward shift in LM curve. So you will have to remember the conditionalities. Okay, this is the idea. Now, in the liquidity trap, what is the shape of LM curve? In the liquidity trap is when at the very low rate of interest, the demand for money is horizontal. That means people at the low rate of interest, people are demanding all the money that they can hold. So whatever is the money supply, the people are ready to hold all the money. The people are demanding all the money that they can hold. So whatever the money supply, the people are ready to hold all the money. So at very low rate of interest, people do not want to invest, people do not want to save, the people want to hold. The people are demanding all the money that that is available in the economy. The people are demanding all the money that is available in the economy. So what is the shape of LM curve? In the liquidity trap, when the demand for money is horizontal, then the LM curve is also horizontal. If the demand for money is horizontal, then the LM curve is also horizontal. C is the answer. Okay, so here C, if the demand for money is downward sloping, but during the liquidity trap at very low rate of interest, the demand for money is horizontal. So whatever is the money supply, people want to hold all the money that they can hold. So this is liquidity trap, that people are holding all the money. The people are not investing the money. The people are not saving the money. At the very low rate of interest, the people want to hold all the money that they can hold. So this is liquidity trap when the demand for money is horizontal. LM curve is also horizontal. So here the monetary policy, because LM curve depends upon money supply. That is monetary policy. With the increase in money supply or decrease in money supply, there is no effect in the level of income. There is no effect on LM curve, it is horizontal. But the IS curve, that depends upon the government expenditure, that depends upon the taxes. If let's say government expenditure is increasing, IS curve will shift rightwards and level of income will increase. Okay. So here monetary policy is now completely ineffective because LM curve is horizontal, while the fiscal policy is effective because IS curve is downward sloping. IS curve is having its shape. So if government expenditure is increasing, IS curve will shift rightwards and the level of income will increase. Okay. So fiscal policy is effective. The government expenditure is effective. Chalo. Now try to answer this question. So Phillips curve will shift dash with an adverse supply shock. So if there is an adverse supply shock, there will be shift in the Phillips curve where it will shift, leading to the situation of dash. So because of the adverse supply shock, what happens that the inflation starts increasing. So here we have the inflation rate, here we have the unemployment rate. So because of the adverse supply shock, the inflation can increase and the unemployment can also increase. So Phillips curve will shift rightwards. There is rightward shift in Phillips curve. So Phillips curve can shift rightward or upward also, because this is rightward or upward we can say. Now here what is happening, that the inflation is increasing, unemployment is also high or unemployment is also increasing. So this is the condition of stagflation. Stagflation, where there is stagnation, the growth is stagnant, the unemployment is increasing and the inflation is also increasing. So the answer is C here. The answer is C. So because of adverse supply shock, when the supply is decreasing, the inflation will increase, the prices will increase, the general price level will increase, inflation rate is increasing, as well as output is decreasing. Output is decreasing, so unemployment is increasing. So inflation is increasing, inflation rate is increasing, unemployment rate is increasing. Okay. Now here it shows that the inflation depends inversely on the unemployment rate. If the unemployment rate, here unemployment rate is increasing, so Phillips curve shows that if the unemployment rate is increasing, the inflation should decrease. The inflation should decrease if unemployment is increasing. But what happens during stagflation, during unfavorable supply shock, during the adverse supply shock, the inflation rate also increases and unemployment rate also increases. So this is the rightward shift in Phillips curve. This is the condition of stagflation, where unemployment rate is increasing, inflation rate is also increasing. Now, which of the following statement is incorrect regarding the business cycle? So we have the business cycle where there is the condition of boom or expansion, then the economy reaches to the peak where the maximum, the highest level of output is being produced. After, like, because of some situation or because of COVID or because of the external factors and such, there is contraction that can come in the economy, recession or depression can come in the economy. When the economy is producing at the lowest of the level, then it is called trough. After trough, the government can take steps to do the recovery. So there can be recovery that can happen. After that, expansion happens. So this is business cycle. Business cycle refers to fluctuation in aggregate economic activity. Yes, aggregate economic activity, production, consumption, it is changing. Business cycle is synchronic. It might start from one industry, but it's spread to the other industries, and it might start from one country. Recession might start from one country, that can spread to other countries. Okay, this is also correct. Business cycle is symmetrical in all phases. Does we have same length of boom and same length of contraction, same length of recovery and the same length of recession and depression? No, it is not symmetrical. Business cycle is not symmetrical. Sometimes the boom phase is longer, depression phase is smaller. Sometimes recession phase is longer and boom phase is smaller. So it is not symmetric. Peak is the highest level. Business cycles are recurrent. They keep on happening like period after period. Okay, so business cycles are recurrent in nature but not periodical. We do not know the exact time when the boom or the contraction will come. So they are recurrent in nature. They keep on happening from like years after years, but they are not periodical. We cannot specify a timeline. So C is the answer here. It was incorrect. Yes, business cycle is asymmetrical. We do not like business cycle is asymmetrical. Sometimes boom is more, contraction is less, then boom is more, contraction might be less, or contraction might be more and boom will be less. B shows that with the change in unemployment, the inflation is changing. Okay. So if unemployment is increasing, inflation will be decreasing. By how much the change is coming in inflation? like with the change in unemployment, how much change is coming in inflation, that is shown by B. Now, these are the features. Business cycle is synchronic. It might start from one sector, spread to other parts. Other sectors might start from one country, spread to other countries. In a trade cycle, a period of prosperity is followed by depression, recession, and such. Business cycle is recurrent and rhythmic. Prosperity is followed by depression, but we do not know the exact period. Okay, trade cycles are asymmetrical. That means prosperity phase might be slow and gradual, while the contraction might be faster. Chalo. Now calculate the NDP at MP with the following data. So GNP at FC is given. Try to answer this. Try to answer this, okay? So calculate NDP at FC. Sorry, NDP at MP from GNP at FC. Gross to net, deduct depreciation. National to domestic, deduct the net factor income from abroad. Factory to market, add the indirect taxes, deduct the subsidies. So GNP at FC is 4280. Deduct the depreciation. Consumption of fixed capital is depreciation, 480. Deduct the net factor income from abroad, 120. Add the indirect taxes, 100. Deduct the subsidies. Deduct the subsidies, that is 80. So what will be the answer? 480, 120, 600. Minus 600 plus 100 minus 500. So minus 580. So 4280 minus 580, that is 3700. This is the answer. So 3700 is your NDP at MP. So NDP at MP is 3700. Now coming to the next question. Balance of payment basically records all the transactions that a country is doing with the rest of the world. Okay. So in the balance of payment, there is current account. There is current account. In the current account, we see the trade in goods, trade in services, transfer payment, which includes remittances, gifts, grants, and such. Now try to answer this question. So basically, export of goods, export is $200 billion. We have done the export of $200 billion, but the imports are of $250 billion. So India's balance of trade. Balance of trade means in the current account, there is trade in goods, there is trade in services, and we record in the current account, there is the record of trade in goods, trade in services, and transfer payment that we are getting from outside, or the transactions, the trade in goods, the trade in services, the transfer payments that we are doing with the rest of the world. So trade in goods is also known as balance of trade or visible trade or merchandise trade. Visible trade or merchandise trade. Trade in services and transfer payment collectively are called invisibles. Okay. So balance of trade is in deficit of $50 billion. So in the trade in goods, in the balance of trade, we are exporting $200 billion while we are importing $250 billion. So we have a deficit of $50 billion. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. We have the deficit of $50 billion because we are exporting less than what we are importing. So we are having a deficit of $50 billion. Okay. Net unilateral transfers. Net remittances means we are receiving the remittances, we are receiving the money from our relatives abroad. Net means what we are receiving as remittances minus what we are paying. So net is always what we are receiving minus what we are giving. So we are receiving the remittances, we are giving the remittances, we are paying the remittances. So we are receiving more than what we are paying. So net remittances are in positive. So net remittances, net unilateral transfer. So this remittances, they are also known as transfer payments or the unilateral transfers because we are receiving the remittances from our relatives. We are receiving the money from our relatives. Are we doing any labor work for them? No. So this is known as unilateral transfers or remittances. They are positive. Yes, net remittances are positive. India's current account will necessarily be in surplus. So in the current account, we have trade in goods, trade in services, and transfer payment. That includes the remittances or the unilateral payments. Trade in good is in deficit of $50 billion because we are importing more than what we are exporting. Trade in goods is not given, so we are taking it 0 because the data is not given. So whenever the data is not given, you can take it 0. Transfer payment or remittances are net remittances, what we have received more than what we what we have received minus what we have paid. So the net amount is $40 billion. So basically, what is the situation in the current account? Are we in surplus or deficit? Are we in surplus or deficit? We are in deficit. The current account is in deficit of $10 billion because 40 billion surplus, 50 billion dollars of deficit. So we have more deficit. So current account will necessarily be in or can be in deficit because of the trade in goods. Okay. So first and second statements were correct. The third one was wrong. So A is the answer. We had to find the correct statements. So basically balance of trade, that is how much we are getting minus how much we are paying. So net exports or the balance of trade is export what we are getting minus imports what we are paying. So it was in deficit of $50 billion. Net unilateral transfers, remittances, transfer payments is basically positive 40 billions. So we have the deficit of 50 billions. We have the deficit of 50 billions. We have the surplus of 40 billions. Services ka data is not given. Services data is not given. So basically the current account is in deficit of 10 billion. So it is not in surplus. Now coming to the next question, which of the following policy action is specifically aimed at reducing inflationary pressure in the economy through changes in government revenue and expenditure? So basically fiscal policy is the policy which deals with government expenditure or revenue. Okay, so in the fiscal policy there are two major tools that are provided: government expenditure and taxes. So if we have to reduce the inflation, if the government has to reduce the prices, reduce the inflation, not prices, but if the government is reducing the inflation, so that can be done through the contractionary fiscal policy. Contractionary fiscal policy, where the government will reduce its expenditure to reduce the demand. The government will reduce its expenditure. So demand is what? Consumption plus investment plus government expenditure plus net export. So government will reduce its expenditure, so demand can reduce, so that the prices can be stabilized, inflation can be reduced, or the government can increase the taxes so that the demand can reduce and the inflation can reduce. So contractionary fiscal policy is adopted. Okay, so this is the idea. Now expansionary fiscal policy. The expansionary fiscal policy is adopted to boost the growth in the economy. To boost the growth in the economy, where the government increases its expenditure to have more demand in the economy, so that more production can happen, so that there is more growth in the economy. Okay, or the government can reduce the taxes so that there is less taxes, so people will be left with more money to demand, will be left with more income to demand. More demand, more production, more growth. So expansionary fiscal policy to boost the growth, contractionary fiscal policy to decrease the inflation. Okay, monetary policy is the policy of the Reserve Bank of India, the monetary authority, and not government. Chalo. So this is the idea that fiscal policy, high inflation, so this can be controlled through the contractionary policy, where the government can increase the tax rates or the government can decrease the government spending. Government spending is decreased means demand will decrease, employment will decrease, and demand will decrease and control the inflation. Or reduced taxes are increased, so it will reduce the consumption power. Okay, so this is the idea. Now if the RBI aims to reduce inflation, then which combination is most appropriate, or which decision will be taken by the Reserve Bank of India? Which of the decision can be taken by the Reserve Bank of India? So if the RBI wants to control the inflation, if the RBI wants to reduce the inflation in the economy, that means RBI will have to decrease the demand, so that with less demand there will be less prices, or prices will be controlled, inflation will be controlled. Okay. So how the RBI can decrease the inflation? By decreasing the demand, that is by increasing the repo rate. At higher repo rate, see, repo rate affects the interest rate. Repo rate is the rate at which RBI provide loan to the banks, and the banks have to give collateral to the RBI in the form of government securities. So repo rate is the rate at which RBI is lending to the banks. If repo rate is increased, the interest rate will increase in the economy. Repo rate if repo rate is increasing, if the lending rate of RBI is increasing, interest rate will increase in the economy. At the higher interest rate, less people will take loan. If less people are taking loan, less people are taking home loan, car loan, so less cars will be sold, less mobile phones will be sold, so there will be less demand. So the RBI can increase the repo rate. The RBI can increase the repo rate to absorb the liquidity and discourage borrowing. Okay, as well as RBI can increase the SLR. RBI can increase the SLR. RBI can increase the SLR. Yes, RBI can increase the SLR. SLR is increased by RBI, so SLR is the reserves that the bank have to keep. So if there are more reserves that the bank has to keep, bank will be left with less money to lend. Okay, so SLR, statutory liquidity ratio, this is the reserves that the bank has to keep with themselves. So if the reserves are increased, the banks have to keep more reserves. There is more SLR, so banks have to keep more reserves with themselves. So banks will be left with less money to lend. So there will be less loans, less demand, less inflation in the country. So B is the answer. Okay. If the repo rate is increasing, the MSF rate will also increase. So this should also be correct. But what is happening if the RBI is purchasing the government security from the banks, RBI will have to give the money to the banks. So RBI will not purchase the government security from the bank, because RBI do not want to release money to the banks, because if banks have more money, they will lend more, there will be more demand, more prices. So this is not true. Okay, so whenever the inflation has to be reduced, the RBI will increase the repo rate. With the increase in repo rate, the SDF rate will increase, the MSF rate will increase. So this is the idea. As well as the RBI can increase the SLR also, or CRR also, to control the inflation. So this is the idea. Now there is the liquidity adjustment facility, in which repo rate, that is the lending rate of the RBI, is in the middle. Now MSF rate, that is Martian Standing Facility rate, this is the rate at which the RBI can lend more to the banks at the penal rate of interest. So MSF rate is higher than the repo rate by 0.25%. So this is the idea, that MSF rate is higher than the repo rate by 0.25%. SDF rate is the rate at which the banks can deposit their money with the RBI. Okay, so SDF rate is less than the repo rate by 0.25%. So SDF rate is less than the repo rate by 0.25%. This is the idea. So if all the rates are increased, so if the repo rate is increased and the SDF rate and MSF rate will also increase. So if the other rates are increased, then the inflation can be controlled. This is the idea. Okay. Now, which of the following is not matched correctly? So I hope you know the definitions or the formula of the different deficits. So try to answer this question. Okay, try to answer this. So which of the following is the answer? Okay, I'm getting the answer A. So the fiscal deficit, it has the formula, that is the fiscal deficit has the formula total expenditure. See, deficit is when the government is spending more than the receipts of the government. When the government is spending more than the receipts of the government. Okay, so deficit is when the government is spending more than the receipts. So when the total expenditure is more than the total receipts, excluding borrowing. So let's say the fiscal deficit, the total expenditure is 2500. The total receipts excluding borrowing is 2400. So fiscal deficit is 100 crores, let's say. Total expenditure is 2500 crores. Total receipts of the government excluding borrowing is 2400 crores. So fiscal deficit is 100 crores. Now this extra expenditure that the government is doing, will be covered by how? This extra expenditure the government is doing will be covered by the borrowings, because we excluded the borrowings, right? So that means the government is borrowing 100 crores to cover this extra expenditure. So fiscal deficit, whatever is the fiscal deficit, that is the total borrowing requirement of the government. This is actually correct. Primary deficit is fiscal deficit minus interest payments. Revenue deficit is revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts of the government. Effective revenue deficit is revenue deficit minus grants that come, because grants are a part of revenue expenditure. So effective revenue deficit is revenue deficit minus grants that are used for the creation of capital assets. Grants used for the creation of capital assets. Got it? So effective revenue deficit is revenue deficit minus grants used for the creation of capital assets. So effective revenue deficit, this was not matched correctly as the formula is not correct. Okay. So D is the answer. So revenue deficit is revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. Fiscal deficit is total expenditure minus total receipts excluding borrowing. So if the fiscal deficit, that is total expenditure, is 2400 crores, total receipts are 2200 crores excluding borrowing. So the total expenditure is more than the total receipts by 200 crores. This is a fiscal deficit and this is the borrowing requirement of the government. This is the total borrowing requirement of the government. Now effective revenue deficit is defined as the difference. Effective revenue deficit is revenue deficit minus grants that are used for the creation of capital asset. Grants that are used for the creation of capital asset. This is the formula of effective revenue deficit. Okay. So grants for creation of capital assets. So central government give grants to the state governments. So the grants that are used for the capital asset, that has to be deducted to come to the effective revenue deficit. Now coming to the question, which of the following items is excluded from revenue expenditure under government budget classification? So this you have to answer. So which of the following items is excluded from revenue expenditure? Revenue expenditure is the regular expenditure of the government, or the expenditure of the government that is not creating any asset. So government is spending the money, but there is no asset that is being created for the government or the country. Or the government is spending the money, but there is no liability of the government that is reduced. Means the government is spending the money, but no asset is getting created or no liability is getting reduced. Liability means the loan of the government or the obligation of the government, that the government has to return the money. So grants given for meeting day-to-day administrative expenses. So these kind of grants, the central government is giving grants to the state governments. This comes under revenue expenditure. This comes under revenue expenditure because central government is giving grants to the state governments, which is not creating any assets, which is not creating any liability for the government, central government. Okay. Now, if the central government is giving grants to the state government, this is not creating any asset of the by the central government, or this is not reducing any liability. So all the grants, whatever reason the grants are given by the central government to the state government, all the grants come under revenue expenditure because these grants, central government is not directly creating any asset. State governments will decide that they want to create any asset or they want to use this money for salaries or something else. Okay, so central government is not able to create any asset directly. So all the grants, they come under revenue expenditure. Interest payment. So central government is giving interest payments. These are the regular payments that is not decreasing the liability or obligation of the central government. It is not decreasing loan for the government. Okay, just interest payments the government is doing. Subsidies. So this is not increasing the asset or not decreasing the obligation of the government. Expenditure incurred on routine maintenance. So routine maintenance of existing public asset. So there is no asset that is increasing or no liability or obligation that is decreasing. Repayment of principal amount of public loans. So basically if the government is repaying the loan, the government is repaying the principal amount, so government is repaying the loan. So this is decreasing the liability of the government. So this comes under capital expenditure. So capital expenditure, the capital expenditure is the one where the government is spending the money and some asset is getting created, some new jets, some new tanks are being purchased, some new weaponry is purchased, some new machine, tools, equipments, roads are being built, bridges are being built. So asset is being created. Or capital expenditure is the expenditure where the government is reducing its liability. The government is reducing its loans or its obligation of payments. Okay, so government is reducing, repaying the loan. So government is reducing its liability. So that is capital expenditure and not revenue expenditure. So E is the answer. So revenue receipts, these are the regular receipts of the government where the government is not creating any liability. That is, this is not a loan. This is the regular receipts of the government. This is not a loan, so it is not creating any liability. This does not decrease any asset of the government. Capital receipts are the receipts of the government where the government is receiving the money by decreasing its asset, by selling its property, its shares, its ownership in the company or something, by selling its asset, or by increasing the liability, by taking the loan or by taking some obligation, okay, to return the payment in the later on period. So revenue receipts, they do not increase the liability, they do not reduce the asset, but the capital receipts, they decrease the asset or they increase the liability, okay. While the capital revenue expenditure, they do not increase the asset, they do not reduce the liability of the government. The government is spending but not increasing the asset, not decreasing the liability. But capital expenditure, they increase the asset or they reduce the liability. Now coming to the last second question, try to answer this question, a very direct question. Try to answer this. So such kind of transactions that take place to cover the deficit or surplus that is arising from the transactions in the balance of payment. So if the balance of payment is in deficit of $30 billion. So if the balance of payment, that means India is doing transactions with the rest of the world and we have the deficit. We have to pay $30 billion extra. So we will use our foreign exchange reserves to cover this deficit of $30 billion so that the balance of payment is overall in balance, okay. Or let's say foreign exchange reserves are not sufficient in our country. If there are not sufficient foreign exchange reserves, in this case what we will have to do, if we do not have sufficient foreign exchange reserves, we will have to borrow from IMF or World Bank. We will have to take money from IMF or World Bank, the multilateral institutions, that okay, we do not have sufficient foreign exchange reserves but we need to pay the deficit. So we will take the money from IMF or World Bank to make the overall balance of payment balanced out, okay. So these kind of transactions that are happening to cover the deficit in balance of payment or the surplus in balance of payment, so these kind of transactions are called accommodating transactions or below the line transactions, okay. So this is the idea. So accommodating transactions are such transactions that cover the surplus or deficit in balance of payment. See, in the balance of payment there is current account, there is capital account. In the current account there is trade in goods, trade in services, transfer payment. In the capital account, it records all the transactions of India with the rest of the world in terms of investment that we are doing outside or investment that we are getting from outside, or the borrowings, the external borrowings, external commercial borrowing, the commercial entities of our country are borrowing from outside or they are lending to outside, external assistance we are providing or we are getting. So all of this comes under capital account. So basically these kind of transaction, if you are doing the trade in goods, if you are exporting the goods, that is for your personal profit motive. If you are purchasing the good, that is for your satisfaction, right? So these kind of transactions, if we are doing investment outside or we are getting investment from outside, that is to earn the returns. The foreigners are investing in our country to earn the returns from our country. We are investing outside to earn the returns from the other countries. So autonomous transactions, these are the transactions that are happening for economic motive. The trade in goods, the trade in services, you are providing your services, you are exporting your services. Why? To earn the money, to earn the income. So we have the economic motive. But such kind of transactions that are done to cover the deficit or surplus in the balance of payment, these are known as accommodating transactions or below the line transactions. Chalo. Now which of the following is under the capital account? So this is the last question. Now remember, autonomous transactions are also called above the line transactions. These are the transactions for your profit motive or for your satisfaction. You are purchasing iPhones, you are importing the products for your satisfaction, for your own economic motives, okay. So these are above the line transactions, autonomous transactions. Below the line transactions are accommodating transactions to cover the balance of payment situation. Last question for today, and with this we will be ending the session soon. Which of the following is under the capital account of balance of payment? So we have discussed that in the balance of payment there is current account and there is capital account. In the current account there is trade in goods, there is trade in services, and transfer payments. Transfer payments are also known as unilateral payments that include remittances from the relatives abroad or gifts and grants and such. Capital account, it includes the investment, the external borrowing, the external assistance. So trade in goods is included in current account. The trade in factor services like the trade in labor services, entrepreneurial services, capital services. So trade in factor services. So trade in services, it is included in trade in services. Trade in non-factor services like shipping, banking, insurance. So these are non-factor services. Software services, IT services. So these are non-factor services. So this is also included in trade in services. Unilateral transfers or transfer payments, this is also included in current account. So all of this is under current account. Which of the following is under capital accounts? So short-term debt, borrowings. It is under the short-term debt or the external commercial borrowing. This is under capital account. So E is the answer here. Okay. So current account, trade in goods, trade in services, transfer payment. Trade in services is factor services, non-factor services. Next, capital account includes investment, direct investment, portfolio investment that we are doing outside or we are getting from outside. External borrowings, external commercial borrowing, short-term debt, external assistance, the aid, loans and such, this all comes under capital account. So this is it for today. If you want to get the PDF of the session, you can get the PDF of the session. The link is given in the description box below. So the PDF of the session is provided in the Telegram channel. Okay. So do tell me that how much marks you have got out of 50. If you have got more than 20, that means you are in a good level for phase 1. But if you have got more than 35, that means you are well prepared for phase 2 also. Okay. Even more than 30 is a good score. So more than 30 is a good score for phase 1 and phase 2. Both more than 35 is a very good score for phase 2. Finance 360 sessions will start for 2026 from 2026. So it will be starting from January, okay, for the new batch. Chalo. So the PDF, you will get the PDF of the session in the Telegram channel of EduTap. The link for Telegram channel is provided in the description box below. To tell me how much marks you have got out of 50. If you have got more than 30, that means you are good to go for the phase 1. Just do the revision of the chapters that you have completed. Okay. If you are above 35, you are like, you have covered some of the parts for phase 2 also. Above 40 will be very, very good. Okay. For phase 1, you are going to be very good in phase 1 from economics point of view. In phase 2 also you will do well if you have got more than 40. So this is it. Thank you everyone. Thank you for joining. See you in the next session. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this.